When leadership ideology invades the home. When work comes home. Work has always influenced home life. Stress, long hours, office politics, they bleed into the kitchen table whether we like it or not. But what happens when the workplace framework itself is carried home and imposed on a family? That's the silent danger behind integral leadership ideology, promoted in a workplace setting. They present a universal framework, a way to handle complexity at work. The problem is, it doesn't stay in the workplace. Leaders are explicitly encouraged to bring it into their personal relationships, to use it in their marriages, families, and friendships. But home life is not a replica of corporate life. Your partner is not an employee. Your children are not subordinates. Families never signed up to be test cases for someone else's professional development framework. And yet, that's what this ideology demands: consentless adoption of workplace theory into the private sphere. This is more than an intellectual error. It is an intrusion with damaging consequences. Coaching sales rhythm, complexity, leading to framework, leading to solution. In recent LinkedIn posts, and you see the same formula repeated. Strengths become obstacles. What got you here won't get you there. Finance and regulation are overwhelming. Only a new framework can handle the complexity. Culture and perspective taking are tricky. Leaders are blind to 75% of the wisdom. Generational differences are unmanageable. Z versus X requires different motivational strategies. AI and diversity are too much. Integral leadership makes it simple. Every message follows the same rhythm. Exaggerate complexity. Make the problem sound overwhelming. Cast leaders as under-equipped. Whatever got you here is no longer enough. Position integral leadership as the answer. A universal solvent for all challenges. This formula works in a sales context because it manufactures dependency. Leaders who feel overwhelmed will grasp at whatever promises clarity. But the danger is that once internalized, this way of thinking doesn't stop at the office door. It bleeds into family life. The category mistake: families are not workplaces. Workplaces and families operate on fundamentally different dynamics. Workplaces run on contracts, performance reviews, HR policies, and hierarchies. Families run on love, trust, history, and mutual care. Confusing one for the other is a category mistake. Yet integral leadership encourages this very confusion. It tells participants that their lens, their perspective taking, their strengths as limitations, apply everywhere. The implication: if the model works at work, why not bring it home? This is based on Ken Wilber and his self-identified belief system that has no scientific backing, no peer-reviewed basis to say it is right. Just his own belief. This is where the damage begins. When a partner becomes a limitation. In their marketing, strengths are reframed as obstacles. What once brought success now blocks progress. It's catchy in a business context. But imagine applying it at home. A stable partner who values family life becomes a limitation. Consistency is reframed as resistance to growth. Devotion to children is reframed as misplaced prioritization. That reframing isn't neutral. It provides moral permission to devalue what was once cherished. A spouse who was celebrated for stability can suddenly be blamed for holding someone back. Made even worse when a program is being implemented to someone who lives in this particular world of spiritual, pseudoscience thinking. When children become generational challenges. Another post describes the challenge of managing Generation Z versus Generation X, suggesting different motivational strategies. This language might make sense in HR meetings, but in a household, it reduces children to stereotypes. A teenager isn't just moody. They are Gen Z who wants meaning over money. A child's needs aren't personal. They're part of a generational motivational puzzle. Parenting becomes management. The result is depersonalization. Children are treated as case studies in a framework, not as individuals in a family. When disagreements become perspective blind spots. They love to talk about perspective taking and quadrants. The claim is that most leaders privilege one perspective, missing out on 75% of wisdom. Again, fine as an abstract leadership model, even if it does lack data that backs up such claims. But imported into the home, it becomes a weapon. A disagreement is no longer two people with different feelings. It is reframed as one partner having a blind spot. And who decides where the blind spot lies? The one armed with the framework. Now the relationship is considered a bad dynamic. That is not equality. That is ideological dominance. When Land D becomes coaching, the closed loop in the workplace. The integral leadership program wasn't delivered in isolation. The MD himself has explained, it was paired with NLP coaching, provided by the very same people who designed the Land D framework, brought into the business based on his own belief in the program. On the surface, this might look like a convenient package deal. Employees learn the leadership model and then receive coaching to help them apply it. But beneath that, the setup creates a closed and self-reinforcing loop with serious risks. 1. The framework defines the problem. Integral leadership presents its worldview as a universal lens. Whatever the issue, regulation, generational differences, personal blind spots, the framework can name and frame it. 2. Coaching provides the solution. NLP coaching is then offered to help individuals work through those issues. The problem, of course, is that the issues have already been defined by the framework itself. NLP thrives on reframing language, shifting identities, and uncovering limiting beliefs. The coach never has to question the framework. They only have to align the person with it. 3. Roles collapse. Normally, workplace training and private coaching would be separate domains. Training might cover skills. Coaching might focus on personal goals. Though in this case, the same people held both roles, architects of the ideology and personal guides into it. That's not neutral support, it's ideological immersion. 4. Consent is blurred. When your employer pays for your development, can you really refuse? Employees may feel they have no choice but to participate in the coaching offered, even when it shifts from professional to deeply personal terrain. Saying no risks looking resistant, disengaged, or uncommitted to growth. That is not genuine consent. When some call it cult-like, who do you report to? 5. Home life becomes collateral. This pairing makes it potential that the framework bleeds into personal life to those who are already immersed in an ongoing process of self-development, self-help. An employee isn't just taught to lead differently at work, they are coached to live differently everywhere. A partner becomes a limitation. A child becomes a generational challenge. A disagreement becomes a blind spot. Families, who never consented to any of this, are pulled into an experiment they never asked for. When parenting gets reframed, the impact of bringing workplace ideology home doesn't just affect marriages. It affects how children are raised. Before the program, when our eldest son finished high school just after turning 17, he came to us with maturity and honesty. He asked if he could drink alcohol at an end-of-school party. He had never drunk before, and the very fact that he told us proved that. We both responded the same way. We would not encourage underage drinking, but we also recognized he was old enough to know right from wrong. We trusted him to handle peer pressure and make his own decision. He chose not to drink. He simply drove to the party, stayed overnight, and came home the next day. Fast forward to post-integral leadership and NLP coaching. When our youngest turned 16, we discovered he had been drinking at a party. This time, the response was entirely different. Instead of holding the same rational line we had with our eldest, the attitude became, he's going to do it anyway, so we should just tell him to be careful. That shift might sound small, but it reflects something bigger. What had once been a united parental stance grounded in values became permissive resignation. The coaching mindset of meeting people where they are replaced rational boundary setting. What had once been an act of maturity rewarded with trust turned into enabling behavior dressed up as practical wisdom. Children are not leadership case studies. They are not systems to work with. They need parents, not coaches. My story: the cost of imported ideology. 4 years, my wife celebrated me. In cards, in Facebook posts, in the way she spoke about me to friends and family, the message was consistent. She loved me for who I was, for what I did for our kids and our family. Imperfect as our marriage was, there was no doubt about that. But once she immersed herself in this ideology, everything shifted. Qualities once praised became framed as limitations. My devotion to our children was recast as neglecting her needs. Stability became stagnation. Love became insufficiency. She hadn't suddenly discovered a problem. She had imported a framework that told her to see a problem. A partner reframed as a barrier. A marriage reframed as misaligned. Children reframed as a generational clash. This wasn't growth. It was ideological capture, and it tore our family apart. The broader risk. I am sure my story is not unique. Whenever coaching frameworks like integral leadership encourage leaders to live their models at home, they have the potential to create a pipeline of collateral damage. Families forced into roles they didn't choose. Relationships reframed through a professional ideology. Love recast as insufficiency. It's baked into the model. The program markets their framework as a way of being, not just a workplace tool. That makes intrusion into private life inevitable. The line that must not be crossed. Leadership frameworks may have a place in the workplace. Skills training, structured problem solving, and new ways of thinking can support professional growth. But when those frameworks are paired with private coaching, delivered by the same people who designed them, the line between development and indoctrination collapses. That is exactly what happened in this workplace. Integral leadership wasn't just taught. It was reinforced through NLP coaching by its creators. The framework defines the problems. The coaching reframes personal lives around those definitions, and employees who are willing to fully buy into the ideology take it home. Families, who never signed up for any of it, bear the brunt of the fallout. My marriage became one of those casualties. Qualities once celebrated, devotion to our children, stability, consistency, were reframed as limitations. What was once love was rewritten as insufficiency. The coaching didn't just influence her work life, it rewrote the story of our home life. It solved blocks in her spiritual thinking by making me the scapegoat to her not being where she now believes she needed to be. This is the danger of ideological capture. When Land-D and coaching become one and the same, the result is not growth but coercion. It creates a closed loop where the only acceptable outcome is alignment with the framework. That alignment does not stop at the office door. It follows employees home, colonizes their relationships, and redefines families without consent. Universities, corporations, and HR departments should treat this pairing as a red flag. Training is not neutral when the trainer also acts as coach. Coaching is not safe when it is built on the ideology of the training. And families should never have to live inside a model designed for corporate sales. The line is simple. Keep frameworks at work. Keep coaching separate. Protect families from the intrusion of workplace ideology.